Did you know that 70% of schools fail the state standardized test that is given every year? Good afternoon, class. My name is Tiffany Nixon, and today I'm going to inform you of the truth about standardized testing. While the Department of Education for the United States of America has declared that standardized testing is a fair and objective way to measure students' achievement, the students' testing data that is collected has not validated their praise. Most all of you have been exposed to or have taken a standardized test during your educational career. Children start to learn, prepare, and begin testing in first grade, and then will continue to be tested every year or other year until they complete high school. Every year, students test in order to measure if they are meeting the standards for their age group. Because of my extreme interest on different learning styles and the United States education system, today I will present information on why standardized testing is an ineffective method of measuring students' abilities on how America is educationally suffering because of it. I will do this by presenting the research that has proven the standardized testing is an ineffective method, how it has decreased the confidence of students, and what other effective methods other countries are using. Billions of Americans' taxpayers' dollars are invested in creating, revising, and testing students. Students are tested in common core areas of math, reading, writing, and science. State assessments on children begin after the No Child Left Behind Act that was passed in 2001 by President George Bush. While the overall idea of testing students to see that they are utilizing the information that they are learning seems like a favorable idea, unfortunately the scores that children are receiving are not yielding what is desired. America is not exceeding in education as other countries are, and testing is taking the fun out of school. As more and more research each year on standardized testing is presented, the more information proves that standardized testing is not an effective way of measuring students' intelligence. To begin with, standardized tests do not consider that children have different intelligence types. Howard Gardner, an American developmental psychologist, proposed based on his research that humans have multiple intelligences. Gardner identified that there are 7 different intelligence types, and then continued to conduct research in order to find more support for his ideas. But one study that helps to support his hypothesis was on autistic children. Gardner was fascinated on how a child who had hardly any language skills could be outstanding in math. So yes, while an autistic child is different from a child without a disability, think of it this way. If a child has been blessed with musical intelligence or interpersonal intelligence, how do you think they would perform on a test that only measures math, reading, science, and writing? Can we truly measure a child and state that he or she is not succeeding educationally when we are not testing them in the areas that he or she is most passionate about or strongest in? What about children who are gifted in math? While they are being tested in one area in which they are gifted, what about other areas? If he fails to pass on these portions, can we truly state that he is not meeting the standard? Another reason why standardized testing is ineffective is that children are not learning. What I am stating by this is that students are not utilizing their information. Instead, they are memorizing in order to pass the test that measures if he or she will ultimately graduate high school. As previously stated, the United States of America is not performing as well academically as other students across the globe. In fact, America ranks 23rd in mathematics and 16th in science. The cause of this is because of state-administered tests and memorizing what is required rather than learning critical thinking skills in order to propel the United States educationally. How can the United States truly state that standardized testing is effective for students when we are failing behind? With these statistics, how can the United States truly state that standardized testing is effective for students while we are falling behind educationally from other countries? Now that you have an understanding of why standardized testing is an ineffective method used in education, I will explain the effect of standardized testing on a child's morale. As previously stated, each year, children are administered a test required by their state of residence. While the Educational Department states that this is an excellent way to measure children, what about the kids who fail every year? Think about the children who work hard and put in as much effort as they can on their tests, yet they continue to fail. Have you ever heard of the phenomenon of the self-fulfilling prophecy? Well, for those of you who have not, the self-fulfilling prophecy is the idea that our prediction or expectation of an event makes the event more likely to occur. Basically, this means if you believe that you're going to fail, you will fail. So think about the child who received a failing grade from the previous administered test. If they told themselves that they were going to do poorly the next year, the more likely they will. As if this concept was not clear enough, researchers set out to have a concrete understanding of standardized testing caused a decrease in morale in children, and the results supported their hypothesis. In a research article published by the Canadian Journal of Education and researched by Laura Lee, the study aimed to discover if standardized testing was becoming a problem for students. Their study interviewed high school students and found that almost all of the children based their self-worth off their test. Many of the children, even those who were labeled average, began to question their academic abilities and if they were cut out for college. So again, not every child is going to necessarily fail, but even average children were questioning if they were worthy and academically prepared to continue on to college. Now that I have presented the evidence for why standardized testing is an ineffective method and decreased students' morale, I will now discuss what other top-ranking educational countries are doing to help foster an educational environment where the children flourish. One of the countries that has been given praise year after year all over the world is Finland. Most of us would assume that Japan or Korea would be top-ranking, but it seems that Finland is almost always on top every year. They have the highest PISA scores out of everyone. The reason for this is that Finland has adopted an unorthodox method for education. Their secret? Well, one article for The Atlantic written by Anna Parton looked into why Finland was doing so well. And the reason why was that Finland does not administer any tests, with the exception of one exam going into secondary education. Finland chose not to pursue the testing route in order to prepare their students not for memorizing information, but to truly have a full understanding of all materials that is being learned and how to put that information taught into real-life scenarios. Teachers are not trained to teach students to prepare for a test. Instead, they are encouraged to be facilitators for the children's learning. The children are taught to experiment and come to their own conclusions. Thus, this provides an environment fostering children to become critical thinkers as opposed to memorizers. Along with this, none of the children feel pressured. Even the children with learning disabilities succeed because they too discover what techniques promote their learning, which in return helps them educationally flourish. In conclusion, as previously stated, the United States is falling behind other countries educationally. In order to continue to be a top-ranking country in other areas, it is time that the United States stop investing so much money in bailing out big companies and sports events and start investing in education. Clearly, our education system is flawed, and the people, especially the children, are paying for it. As the research suggests, standardized testing is not an effective way to measure or determine if children are learning, and many children's morale is suffering for this. Instead, the United States of America needs to adopt a system similar to Finland's in order to create a country who can critically think, solve problems, instead of practicing techniques that are yielding similar results. One of my favorite quotes by the great Albert Einstein states this: "Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, he will live his whole life believing he is stupid." Therefore, I leave you with this. It is time that America step up to the educational challenge and stop comparing children as a standard and start allowing them to find their own genius.